Andrea Pflaumer, the author of Shopping for the Real You and the host of this video series, Vital, Vivacious, and Visible After 50. And today I have an extremely esteemed guest who is so qualified to speak to our audience today for so many reasons that I just think you're going to absolutely enjoy this interview, because what she has to say is applicable not just to older women and not just to older people, but I believe to every human being on this planet, but particularly to those of us in this culture, in the Western culture. So Ashton Applewhite is a writer based in Brooklyn, New York, whose subjects range from family policy and to science and technology, and she's a fabulous writer, by the way. Since 2007, she's been writing and blogging at what I consider one of the most delightful website names I've ever read, which is called This Chair Rocks, which is also the name of her book. She is a New York Times Fellow and an Age Boom Fellow, which is from Columbia University School of Journalism. And she is a Knight Fellow, and I think we should change this word fellow to be dame. I like that better. She speaks widely about how ageism makes America harder than it has to be, especially for women. She's been recognized as an expert on ageism by the New York Times, National Public Radio, and the American Society of Aging. And in their inaugural issue, Salt magazine listed her as one of 100 inspiring women who are committed to social change. And through her website, This Chair Rocks, again, also the name of her book, she's also the voice of Yo, Is This Ageist? So welcome, Ashton Applewhite.
Thanks, it's great to be here.
I'm going to launch right into some questions. First of all, history of aging, was it not always this way? And how did we get where we are? We're starting out assuming that ageism is a real thing, and we know that it is.
Well, ageism is absolutely a real thing. Ageism is, the formal definition is discrimination and stereotyping on the basis of age. Anytime we make a judgment about someone based on how old we think they are, what they're listening to, what they're capable of, whether they're good company or bad. You need to have a fair number of older people in order for there to be stereotyping about them. And grandparents, people didn't live long enough to have 3 generations until the Paleolithic era, and people didn't start living a lot longer till the 20th century. So one thing that happened was there started to be a lot more old age, and in the 20th century, aging started to be presented as a social problem. The good thing we got out of that was Social Security, which has lifted so many older people, especially older women. Ageism does disproportionately affect women, shocker. The sort of bad thing was the rise of, it's too black and white to say good and bad, but retirement communities, nursing homes, and that paved the way for a lot of age segregation. And when we're not around people who don't look like us, our stereotypes don't get challenged. So those are factors that give rise to ageism. Our American lifespan has increased by 30 years in 1 century. Doesn't mean each of us is living, if we're lucky enough to be healthy and well-fed and educated, an average of about 10 more years of healthy life. More people survive to adulthood. But beyond that, we got about 10 more years of healthy life at whatever stage I'm at. I'm 64.
You're a puppy. Now, in other societies, is ageism as prevalent, or is this just something that's endemic in Western culture?
It's endemic anywhere capitalism has reached, I would say, and anywhere there are enough people to have population be a phenomenon. People always want to think that it's better in China, where they revere their ancestors, but China is an example of a place where the forces of global capitalism are causing younger people to move to the cities, leaving older people behind, and voila, you have separation and segregation, which paves the way, and also this idea that young people are economically productive and older people are just lazy slackers, when in fact what we need to do is revise our whole notion of productivity and to value the contributions that people make all lifelong. So it's more common in, I would say, Western Europe, and I would say the U.S. is the epicenter of youth culture. Maybe Hollywood in particular. I was at a women's conference in Beverly Hills just on Sunday. I think one reason is that American society is so consumer driven. We are barraged by messages our whole life long that to age is to become ugly, to become incompetent, to become useless. Because you can't monetize satisfaction. And ladies, have we learned anything from the body acceptance movement, right? Who gets to say that wrinkles are ugly? The skincare industry which is a multi-billion-dollar industry, skincare alone. So if aging is presented to us as a problem to be fixed, then they can sell us stuff to cure it, to make it better. And if aging is presented as a disease, they can sell us stuff to cure it, when in fact, so they medicalize. It's not a disease. It's an increased susceptibility to certain conditions. But even there, we're ageist. We think, oh, all these things are going to happen to me because I'm old. No one condition of aging, like, for example, deafness, affects all older people. Many of the diseases we think of aging start when we're young. So I'm really glad you said what you said about these issues affecting everybody, because ageism also affects kids. Anytime you think, oh, she's too young to handle that, or millennials are lazy, those are ageist generalizations. They couldn't possibly be true of an entire generation.
That's so true. Um, I guess one of my big questions is, my listeners are going to get tired of hearing the story, so I'll just make it brief. I had a post about 4 months ago where I showed two very famous British actresses who are in their 80s.
Let me guess. Helen Mirren and Judi Dench.
Well, it was Judi Dench and not Helen Mirren.
Vanessa Redgrave?
Yeah. No, not Lynn Redgrave. Downton Abbey.
Maggie Smith.
That's right, Maggie Smith. Memories. And I just posted something that I thought was pretty innocuous, saying, not a lot of makeup, not a lot of, facelifts. We just love and admire them for who they are. And it got 16 million views. But the people that rebelled against it and got really angry with me on Facebook were younger people.
Wow.
How dare I diss them for wanting to wear makeup and look beautiful? So here's the question. How do we change younger people's ideas about aging?
Well, it's a really great question. It's a really complicated issue. I've been working hard on a new talk about the intersection of ageism and sexism. I think that it's a mistake to cast it in terms of changing younger people's ideas, because I think we all hold the same notions. I also think aging is life itself. There are two sides to everything, and we each have to come to this awareness at our own speed and in our own way, right?
Right.
When it comes to dyeing our hair, Botox, plastic surgery, in this society, younger women maintain power or any woman, by looking younger than other women, because youth is currency. When we do that, when we compete with each other to freeze ourselves in time, we all know that we reinforce sexism, we reinforce ageism, we reinforce patriarchy. We're all competing against each other. It's like working at home moms against working outside the home moms. The issue is not who's better. The issue is equal wages for women and affordable childcare. So when we women in the domain of aging and ageism and sexism are competing to look younger, all we're doing is digging ourselves a deeper hole. That said, I too, if I post anything, for example, about women coloring their hair just to cover the gray, only if you don't like doing it and you experience it as a tyranny, I get 10,000 notes, not really, but people say, you don't get it. I have to hang on to my job. I have a family to support. Let me say, I really do get it. And I will repeat what I said. You've got it. I mean, a woman came up to me at the LA thing and she said, and I contextualized it the way I'm about to, but she said, I really tried to go gray. I was almost there and then I couldn't do it. And I'm like, that's fine. Be how you need to be in the world.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's important to remember that doing those things is like a gay person attempting to pass for straight or a person of color attempting to pass for white. They're really, really effective strategies to get around discrimination that is really vicious in this society. But it's not good for us because it makes us feel ashamed about something that is inevitable and natural and actually really powerful. And from a political point of view, it distracts attention away from the underlying issue, which is discrimination. And these are not personal problems. They are widely shared political problems. And we need to come together as older people and as women. I mean, I have this really powerful idea, and I really do know that we're not ready for it. But I was coming out of up an escalator at a movie theater in New York on a weekday afternoon. Everybody there was my age or older, and there was only one gray-haired woman it was a full theater, and I thought, this is one way we make ourselves invisible as older women. I get it. Again, I get it. I am not telling you to go throw your hair dye out by any means, but just for you to think about the fact that when people are invisible, so are the issues that affect us. And by doing these things, we collude in our own marginalization.
So I, I,
It's
I
really complicated.
I agree with everything you're saying. Let's look at a practical uh, element of this. And this cuts across genders. Um, you say, and I completely agree with you, that diverse environments and diverse companies work better. First of all, I want to know, some ideas why that is, but how do we change employers' ideas about aging when it's cheaper to hire younger employees? And this is something that's hit our family personally. Someone in my family is about 55, worked for a company 17 years, very successful, two young kids. He just hit the demographic where the spreadsheet came up and said, oh, we got to keep supporting him. Sorry, here's your pink slip. How do we change employers' ideas? And why do diverse companies, in terms of age specifically, work better?
Well, diverse companies work better. I mean, it's absurd that we don't think automatically of age as a criterion for diversity. I mean, obviously it belongs there along with color and sexual orientation and gender and, ability. Um, and we know that when there's a diverse team around the table, that people bring more experience and different kinds of experience to the decision, and we know that they meet their customers' needs better. So that's why. I would say be careful again of framing it as younger workers versus older workers, because it's in corporations' interest to pit us against each other instead of working to make conditions better for all workers. Okay? It is not true, for example, that older workers take jobs away from younger people. You hear that all the time. Older and younger workers typically do not compete for the same job. They have different abilities. When your employer lays you off and hires two 20-year-olds, he's not replacing your experience or your new know-how. He may be spending less money on salaries, but he's going to have to spend a lot of money training them. And then the odds of them going off and finding new jobs are really high, whereas older workers tend to be more loyal and tend to be grateful for jobs where they can bring their experiences to bear. So it's not zero sum, and it's really important to look at the big picture.
Wonderful. Absolutely. So, okay, so we've laid out the problems pretty clearly, and I think there's hardly a person who would disagree with you. But let's talk about what it means to what you describe as living agefully. What does that mean?
Well, I coined the term in sort of pushback against the term ageless. which
Mm.
I don't like because because it's used to sell anti-aging products. And I love, there's a British journalist named Ann Karp who said on NPR, you can no more be anti-aging than anti-breathing, right? We are aging every single day. So when you buy something that says anti-aging, think about what it means. In an ageist culture, a youth-oriented culture, we are conditioned to think of age only in terms of loss. And as we all know, as we pass through life, and those losses, there are real losses. In physical function, those are the only ones that are inevitable. 20% of people escape any kind of cognitive decline entirely, and most of us only experience that thing of that person's name, and we continue to function in the world just fine. The epidemic is anxiety over memory loss. So we know the part of the story that doesn't get told, though, is the aspect of how age also enriches us. It brings us experience. It brings us skills. So it's not just a pure process of loss. In fact, I would argue that it is even more a process of enrichment and accretion and addition. And I call that ageful. Because each of us is the sum of everything we've ever done and learned, all the mistakes we made, all the pleasures we had, all the mundane stuff in between. Why should we want to be stripped of that, stripped of our years, to be ageless, to be some hollow shadow, when we can be ageful? And the epigraph of the book is a quote of Anne Lamott's, that we contain all the ages we have ever been. And we're brainwashed again to believe that some awful thing is going to happen. We're going to wake up old someday and it's all going to suck. And there is no line between old and young, right? We don't lose access to who we were. We just get more. And that's ageful.
That's beautiful. I mean, and even the difference between ageless and ageful, from what you've said, it's so beautiful. It's the difference between less and full.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not zero sum. You
That's
lose
right.
some stuff. But I talk about bicycling. When I was in my 20s and I moved to New York, I bicycled everywhere like a maniac. I still bicycle. I'm slow now. I wear a helmet now. So the point is not, the point is I still really like riding my bike and I still get where I want to go. I'm not riding as fast as I am, but we can almost always find ways to do what it is we want to continue doing. And people live in terror, people our age. What's going to happen when I can't do those things anymore? What we forget is that we already can't do things we used to do, at least not the way we used to do them, and we can do other things we didn't used to be able to do.
That's right.
And then it's a continuum. You don't fall off some cliff.
You know, God, back in the 80s, I used to teach senior citizen movement courses at a hospital here for many years. And in my research, what I found out, and this was in the 80s, that the happiest people in the world, not just in the Western culture, were 85 and older. And I'm assuming that's still the case.
It's called the U curve of happiness. Google it if you don't believe it. I didn't believe it the first time I heard it, or the
I
first
didn't
five.
either.
I came to this if you had told me 10 years ago that I would be fascinated by aging, I would have said, oh, that must be boring and depressing. Why would I want to think about that? Study after study in the US and around the world, independent of marital status, independent of how much money you have, shows that people are happiest at the beginnings and the ends of their lives. And where I come at that as an activist is, if we feel that way despite all the obstacles to a fulfilling old age in this society, imagine how powerful it would be if our view of late life was actually more based on facts and less based on fear.
That's beautiful. So, do you have any inspiring stories of women that you know who are redefining the concept of aging? I mean, I'm sure you meet people all over the country who probably are so grateful to you. And can you think of any off the top of your head who,
Geez, I have a whole book full of inspiring stories.
well, share one.
I'm well. Uh, I'm going to share a story about. I just had an op-ed piece in the Sunday Times on Labor Day called "You're How Old? We'll Get Back to You." And the response it brought me to tears was from a man who was in his 60s. He was a hospital administrator, and he had everyone else his age had been let go. He wasn't involved in key decisions anymore. He was waiting for the axe to fall himself. And he said, until I read your piece, which was, of course, about discrimination in the workplace, he said, I thought it was me. I thought there was something where he had never heard the word ageism. And he said, now I see that it's not me and that it's a political issue. The way aging is framed in society, we think, oh, if I have wrinkles, it's because I didn't, sit up straight, or I need to buy more expensive cream or whatever. If I can't open the jar, it's because I didn't go to the gym. If I am scared of going to the theater because there's no railing, it's because my vision is bad or I'm not fit enough. There should be railings in the theater. Jars should be easy to open. Those problems are structural. They are reflective of a society that doesn't involve the needs of older people and people with disabilities and kids. And we need to work around the discrimination that makes those barriers acceptable. And when we feel shame at these natural transitions, think about where that comes from and reject it.
Yeah, boy, that is, I mean, just on a daily basis, whenever I have to open a jar, and I'm fairly strong, but if I have to ask my husband to open it, I thought, Jesus, what if I were 10 years older and I didn't have a husband around? I wouldn't eat. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but
Put
you
a
know what I mean.
man on the moon. Making a jar top that is easy to handle is
Exactly.
within our capacity.
Well, this is spectacular. I think I don't think there's anybody who would disagree. I think that
I
it's going to
just want to
open our
say, I
eyes.
really hope you will ask people to read the book. It's really fun to read, and it will change the way it's got almost 75 five-star reviews on Amazon so far, I think.
I've seen that.
And it will change the way you feel about the rest of your life. It's available on Kindle, it's available as an audiobook, and you will think differently about the years ahead.
That's fantastic. And that's exactly what I was just about to do, to
Okay.
tell our viewers that the book is called This Chair Rocks, and the website is called This Chair Rocks, and Ashton Applewhite, you rock.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you so much for joining us, because you are the epitome of vital, vivacious, and visible. And I'm going to I'm going to have to change the title. Instead of just being after 50, it's got to be after 60. I'm almost 70, and I know a whole lot of people who are over 80, and they rock too.
See, I would urge you not to have a cutoff, because that implies, we want to bust up the binary whenever we can. The idea that there's some point after which it's different. Some people, I mean, I hear all the time, oh, my friend is 10 years younger than I am, but she acts so old. There's no way to act old or act young. Maybe she's less mobile, maybe she's lazy, maybe she's timid. But we can be lazy or timid at 12
That's
and at
right.
112.
That's
So
right.
I would urge you to say, for older women, or the third stage, or the second half, or whatever you want. Even that second half implies a binary.
Yeah.
But it's not as though and younger women. I bet the style advice is pretty damn good. And can I make a pitch about the shoes, since you said I got to shout out?
Absolutely.
Okay, Exhibit A. Can you see how butt ugly that shoe is?
We love fashion. What is, yes,
Okay.
we see it.
So I love shoes. I had to start wearing orthotics most of the time this summer. This is the shoe they sold me. I bought it, which holds an orthotic, right? A doodad inside the shoe, because it needs a little heel. There is no reason a shoe this simple, right? Strap here, strap here, strap here, has to be this butt ugly.
Great.
I have a fashionista friend. She looked at them. I was trying to put a happy face on. She looked at them and she said, Renegade Nun? Which, if they sell this on Zappos, that would be the label, right? Come on, people. You can do better. I need them.
Well, so I will direct you and our viewers to one of my other guests' website, which is called Barking Dog Shoes. written
Okay.
by a woman who has a young
Yeah.
woman that has rheumatoid arthritis and feels exactly the same way. We shouldn't have to wear ugly shoes.
We should not, and don't. And I trust your listeners know there is no such thing as age appropriate
That's
in
right.
fashion or anywhere else.
Well, Ashton Applewhite, again, of This Chair Rocks, thank you so much for your expertise. Thank you for your passion and for what you're doing, because knowledge is power, and you're spreading knowledge and giving us power. So again, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us on Vital, Vivacious, and Visible
That's a lovely
as
way to
we age. Thank you.
die.
Bye-bye.